When you hear the two words summer reading, it might make you break out into hives and go into super flashback trauma mode. I know that summer reading has gotten out of control in terms of what we value and who's in charge and who's doing it, who's it for. There are a lot of questions about whether or not it's actually effective or even worth trying to rescue. I do believe that there is a way to rescue summer reading, and not just because we should. I know that with the summer slide and all of the work that we do to grow our students throughout the school year, the heartbreak that comes with knowing how much is lost, especially from our low economic students. We had got to come up with some creative solutions to make summer reading happen again, but happen in a way that is truly positive, authentic, fun, and engaging. I've got a webinar for you that I'd love to share. I also dropped 2 episodes about summer reading that you can listen to on the podcast. Head to bravenewteaching.com/summer reading to get all your freebie goodies, watch the webinar, and give summer reading another shot. This is one that you're going to want to watch with your teacher bestie or maybe even your team. If you're ready to take the next step, give me a call, give me a jingle, let's plan it together, or just send me a message on Instagram. Head to bravenewteaching.com/summer reading to get that kickstart you need to make summer reading fun and awesome. One more time.
Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching. Hello, Amanda.
Oh, hey there. How's it going, Marie?
Oh, hey, how are ya? It's good. I'm good. I'm excited to talk through the next few episodes in our Hero's Journey and Teaching the Hero's Journey collection here are going to get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty. And we have not done one of these types of episodes in a hot minute.
Yeah, the last series we did was on novels in verse. And so if you're looking for similar types of curriculum support, you can head back to, let's see, it's around episode 243 is the beginning of that collection. And then our collection here began last episode, 256, and it's going to be a series of 4. So we're going to hop right into the topic of today, since we already kind of did a big overview in 256.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've already talked through the big picture stuff and Hero's Journey, how we teach it, where we teach it, ideas for essential questions. And now we're going to jump in this week, next week, and the following week are going to be episodes that zoom in on a specific string, basically, of this conversation. And we're going to take it going kind of up. Like we're going to take a typical 7th grade novel. We're going to take a typical 9th grade text and a typical 11th grade topic theme and do one per week. And I'm excited because today we're talking 7th grade. The Hobbit is very often taught in those middle grades, especially in 7th grade. We're going to talk through how we would use the hero's journey with the Hobbit, which I know many of you do because you have told us this. So yeah, we're ready to jump in.
We're not, actually, because...
No, we're not. I lied to you.
This conversation will be much easier to follow along with.
Oh, gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm such a liar. Yes, Amanda's right.
Our
free.
Part of the goal of this episode, Marie, is she already has it up on her computer. She forgot to tell you to go get it on your computer too. bravenewteaching.com/hero so that you can look at what we're looking at. It's a hero's journey graphic organizer, evidence tracker, however you want to use it, that Marie designed that we are going to use and teach you how to use throughout these different units. So go get it so that you can look at it while we're talking here.
Yeah, it's nothing revolutionary. I mean, it's not like I made up the hero's journey. I am not Joseph Campbell over here, but it is organized in a way that I have refined over the years and used with students. And it really does help. It makes sense. bravenewteaching.com/hero. It's there, free. Download it. Take a look. Listen through this and then maybe come back to it while you have it in front of you and you'll go, I see what they're talking about. Okay, now am I allowed to say it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cue the music.
You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a high school teacher from Southern California.
Join us after the show and happy hour to extend your BNT experience with instant access to our resources, workshops, and courses.
Visit shop.bravenewteaching.com/happy hour to join us today. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show. All right, friends. I remember reading The Hobbit. I must have been 7th grade. And I remember being bored out of my mind. How about you?
I remember starting it and never finishing it.
Actually, I wonder if I even finished it. I feel like for some reason, there's this weird memory of The Hobbit literally being David the Gnome, which I know it's not. Like, I know I'm thinking of, do you know what I'm talking about, David the Gnome?
I do know what you're talking about.
I know that there was a animated version of The Hobbit when we were younger.
I don't remember that.
But in my head, it's David the Gnome.
That's really funny.
And therefore, extremely boring. And then when like Lord of the Rings, the movie started coming out, then I read those books and I was like, oh, this is legit. I loved this. Like high fantasy, all of that good stuff. But like, I had a hard time. Young Marie had a really hard time like getting into The Hobbit. And I think it's because we read it just to read it and just to look at literary terms.
And that's not what we do here at the Brave New Teaching podcast.
It is not.
Because we know that that doesn't work and it's draining for both of you.
Yeah, well, like when a certifiable fantasy nerd like me is like, yeah, I hated it. It was awful. Then you know that something has gone terribly awry. Granted, this was a long time ago.
It wasn't that long ago, but I think that the argument still is like, kids are already going to tell you, why are we reading this? This has nothing to do with my life. That argument gets a little stronger when we start moving toward things like mythology and fantasy. And so, it was already a problem with Shakespeare, and now we're going to put, Hobbit in front of them. And we all know why we read stories. We all know this. We are so close to it that we have to remember that kids need explicit reasons to do the things that they're being asked to do. And while our approach is not to say you're doing this because, our approach is to ask questions and to invest our kids in that journey of asking a question and digging through that question for the whole unit. So in each of these little episodes, we are going to start with what is the essential question that really could drive this unit? Because even though in the title we have these novels, you could easily replace Hobbit with something else. We are going to look at it as an example. But as always, what is the question that we're going to look at with 7th graders, Marie?
So the question that we're going to look at is one that you and I quite enjoy, which is the question of born or made. And this one is, are heroes born or made? So as we're looking at Bilbo Baggins going across Middle-earth in his journey during The Hobbit, students will be tracking his journey through the hero's journey, right? Or I'll talk through the evidence tracker in just a second to then determine, was Bilbo always a hero? Was he born to do this? Like Gandalf, implies explicitly. Or has he been forged along the way into a hero? Is he a hero? So it's a very character driven, huh?
It's so interesting.
Yes. Well, it's a very character driven, very specific, zoomed in look at the hero's journey, because it's literally looking at the hero's journey, like just zoom in on the character. That is where we start, at least with these units that we're looking at for the next few weeks at the 7th grade level. And we always like to start with the essential question, but then in the same breath, we want to talk about the summative, so that those two bookends are so well connected. And the summative for this is a character analysis project. It is something that tracks the journey or the arc of the character and analyzes and answers the question, is this character a hero? And then the next question, was this character always a hero, or were they made a hero through their journey?
When we talk about vertical alignment, what I love about what we've just kind of laid out for teachers here is these are foundational skills that we so desperately want kids to have as we do more complex texts at higher grade levels. Yep. So the fact that we can already, I'm not even looking at Common Core right now, but if you're a Common Core school, right, characterization and complex characterization are huge in 6 through 8. I mean, this is really important, is understanding characters from the point of view of like how they're described, but also how they transform and change across a text. And so transform and change across a text is aided so beautifully by tracking the hero's journey, right? Now kids are going to be able to say, not that Baggins is this or he looks like this. It's going to be he began like this when this event or this
Mm-hmm.
circumstance occurred. This changed that about him because, and ultimately he ended up as blank because of blank. Like we're going to get so many chances for kids to go beyond just description and
Yeah.
into the beginning parts of analysis, but they're not really able to do that as well, I think, without a tool like having a hero's journey evidence tracker of sorts.
Well, so yeah, so the evidence tracker that we have, which hopefully, I mean, I think we've told you multiple times, go to bravenewteaching.com/hero to download it. It's 3 different sheets the way that I have it done. So when you print it out, you'll see that the first sheet, add the hero's journey act 1 departure, which again, I did not invent any of this. It's just simply been organized, is like, if you look at the journey as a circle, the first sheet is the top right. So there's 2 sheets that go on the top, and they're 1 and 3. 1 is on the right and 3 is on the left. And then 2 is in the middle on the bottom. And then it completes the full circle. And you can see the cycle of the hero's journey. That visual helps kids so much. Even if you only give them act 1, like the departure to start with, and then when it's time and they actually do cross the threshold into the special world, they go into act 2 initiation, and then it's time you give them act 3 return. Putting them together at the end, kids go, wow. And then that question we're asking at the summative, which is the full circle, becomes a lot clearer. And I have found that when we use this in my classroom, no matter what grade, 9, 10, 11, 12, students are able to connect more of the dots on their own than they used to be able to. Because I used to do stuff like this in a linear fashion, and the line just wasn't as helpful as the circle. And that's just broadening my way of thinking. And so I like to use this as an evidence tracker and as just a note taker so that we've got both evidence and analysis happening along the way. As students are identifying different steps along the hero's journey, they're not just identifying, but they're also asking the question and answering the question with annotation. What is this doing for the character? Has the character changed? If so, how? If not, why not? Every single step of the way. And then that analysis is done for them because they're able to track it back at the very end.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room that right now, because it's going to come up in the other episodes as well. And we will link the episodes to go like the full long explanation. How are kids reading this, right? How
Oh,
are kids reading The Hobbit? That's what I know everyone's wondering is like, how many days, how many this? Okay, so first of
okay.
all, you're going to use this evidence tracker to plan your unit. You're going to teach this unit in 3 parts. Well, I guess 5 parts, right? Part 1 is whatever you need to do for introductory stuff with the essential question and kind of getting kids in the frame of kind of moving into fantasy mythology, this arena. Then your reading parts are going to be Act 1, Act
Yeah.
2, Act 3, see graphic organizer, and then your final piece of the puzzle will be your assessment. The reading, Marie and I have already put out into the world our 2 episodes about teaching with kids who, quote, won't read at home.
Yeah.
We want you to take that air quote line and put it in your back pocket and stop believing that kids won't read at home. They will. And so when you're planning this and you look at what chapters constitute, right, the opening act 1, 2, and 3, right, those are your chunks. Think about the reading in large groups. You
Yes.
don't need to assign pages 1 through 10, pages 11 through 16, pages 17 through 25. Like, no, we're going to assign the whole part. And then you're going to think about how you're going to help kids do it. They're going to do it and you're going to help them figure out how. Maybe you're going to use some reading sprints. Maybe you're going to use audiobooks. Maybe you're going to use excerpts of the film.
Yeah.
And you can certainly like address the reading in a
Maybe
variety.
you're going to use David the Gnome, since apparently that's stuck in my brain.
But you do not need to plan 7 days for a read aloud so that you make sure kids read everything. That's not what you need to do.
Because again, and I yes, Amanda said this, we have other episodes that talk about the how and the why, the ways in which we teach reading, to kids. They're not all going to read all of it.
It's okay.
And that's okay. because what are we doing? We're teaching them how. We're teaching them how to read it so that then when and if they get to a point where, like me, they're like, oh my gosh, I actually do love this. But when I was in 7th grade, I wasn't ready for the whole thing. Had I had a different way to look at it, it probably would have been a lot less intimidating and I wouldn't have fallen asleep. If they have the ability and they can see in themselves the ability to read through and understand, that is the biggest hurdle to jump. And so it's okay to omit a chapter or two and watch film and then come back into a hybrid situation because it debunks a lot of the lies that kids have told themselves about reading and about stories. So just like remember that it's okay to do that.
It's super okay, and you're not going to lose them because what are you going to do during the week? If you are like, what are they talking about? You probably are the perfect candidate for curriculum rehab.
Yeah.
If you haven't yet done curriculum rehab, we'll link it in the show notes. We have it on our website. It's everywhere. It's a course where we actually walk you through this process. But the short version is during the week, we're going to be close reading the passages that you've selected to be like the most critical for studying the essential question and the hero's journey. And you're going to be working through this evidence tracker, discussing whether or not these things that are happening made Bilbo a hero
Or developed the hero that was already within him.
already within.
So I also want to address, we're going back to the elephant. Because
Wait. Did you just make an elephant sound?
Yes, but it's not working out very well because I'm trying not to be super loud.
Oh my God.
Don't get us wrong. We believe that an entire novel, reading an entire novel is of the utmost importance in
100%.
a child's educational career. Throughout education, they should be reading entire works. Yes. We are also realists, and we know that even our fervent readers are reading what they want to and not necessarily reading all of what we want them to. And so our focus on skills is just that, the focus on skills, so that the kids who are going to read anyways are going to read anyways. The kids who weren't going to read, guess what? If we're reading a chapter together, if we have them hooked and they do 3/4 of a chapter on their own versus the whole entire thing, that's 3/4 more of a chapter than they would have read, right? So like that's kind of, it's always the end game is much farther out. We're playing the long con here. And it's building those lifelong skills. I just wanted to make sure we talk about that because I know, like, I personally get a little bit like about it when I'm like, yeah, but they're not really reading. Yeah, but they are, because it's okay if they're reading something below their grade level. If you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I teach 10th grade and this is actually something, but can I give them The Hobbit? Yeah, heck yeah, you can, because Tolkien's dense, but then also because a lot of those kids aren't going to be reading anyways. And if you give them something interesting that is an easier read for them, they're going to read it. And then that begets more. And it's like first taste is free. You know what I mean? Like it's the gateway. Let's go.
Well, and we've talked about this in other episodes too, but it's so important to speak to power, like speak what you believe is true about your students. If we constantly speak out that they can't and they won't, then that is absolutely going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
We have to say, you can read this at home. You will read this at home. We are all reading at home. And if you're stuck on how to do that, here are some tools. Let's sit down and plan your calendar. Let's find the audiobook. Did you know that on YouTube, you can find books and you can change the speed? You could read this at 2.5 times speed. And they're like, what?
Uh-huh.
Right? Like make a plan, not an excuse. That's what I used to always tell my kids. Make a plan, not an excuse.
Oh yeah. Audiobooks are some of my students' favorite ways to like both check off their chores and homework at the same time. I'm like, guys, you think you can multitask? This is literally multitasking. Put on your headphones, listen to your homework, and clean your room. Your mom will love you.
She will. I mean,
Yes.
she sort of already does, but not all the way, right?
Yeah, but you know, she might not like you right now. If your room smells the way I'm sure it does. Let's talk a little bit about other stories that we could pair with The Hobbit. I realized I wrote fiction and nonfiction, and I wrote nothing under nonfiction other than, I think, just some like age appropriate and accessible like theory and explanation on the hero's journey itself. But we've got just a couple of journeys that are Hobbit-esque that students will be able to track, like with the same evidence tracker, maybe just color code it. I really like Moana to go along with Bilbo Baggins.
Moana's journey is great because it's older, so most kids know it, and
Yeah.
the overlaps when it comes to like family and duty and home are really interesting there. And I want to say too, like when you're thinking about your supplements, remember to also think about this 3-part arc,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe every Friday you watch Moana, like just the section,
Just
right? Like
pieces.
the
Yes.
section that you're on with The Hobbit, and like you're back and forth. You could have multiple supplementals, but like why not just have a paired unit? You could do that as well.
Yes. And well, and the other thing about like Moana, like it or not, it does give a glimpse into other cultural
100%.
perspectives. Again, everything has, it's with a filter. Well, and then going right back to England, we've got The Sword and the Stone is a great one as well.
Yeah.
The differences between like Moana is in a very episodic, the same way that like the hero's journey breaks things down into different like smaller adventures within the larger journey. The Sword and the Stone is a little bit different, and so you can kind of but King Arthur is a
Yeah.
very classic hero archetype. And so some comparing and contrasting between that and then the reluctant hobbit is, I think, a good conversation that's like at 7th grade, especially very accessible, but also challenging.
And think about, so we're gonna kind of wrap up this episode, and I'm already thinking about our next episode,
Mm-hmm.
which is I want you to think about too the groundwork that you're laying for what's coming next for these students. Your students will almost without a doubt have to handle the Odyssey or the Iliad or some kind of classical Greek mythology, and having the experience with Bilbo and Moana, like confronting these different like physical landscapes, these different monsters, these different pieces of the journey. You are giving them such a leg up to then see, right, this journey at a much more difficult level because they already have that foundation. Like they know what to expect on this journey. They know what to expect in this archetype, therefore making room, right, for their brains to tackle more challenging and more distant and foreign text. And that's just like, that's the beauty. That's what we want for vertical alignment. And so thank you in advance if you are the kind of school or just the kind of teacher that's like thinking down the line, how is this like the first layer of what's coming next?
Yep. And speaking of what's coming next week, we are jumping ahead a couple years to what's typically taught in 9th grade. And we're going to be looking at a unit with the Odyssey, which I guarantee the lion's share of you have had in your classroom and have taught a unit using the Odyssey at least once in your careers. So let's talk about how to make it a little bit fresher and a little bit more how you want it to be instead of maybe like me, how it has been. Okay. Thank you for hanging out with us. Have a wonderful week at school, friends, and we will see you next time. And make sure that you head to the show notes or to bravenewteaching.com/hero and get the 3-part sheets. They're bananas, but they really do work, I promise. Okay. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in Happy Hour and the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here and have a great week at school.